Next up, 3.5, update on synthetic turf playing fields, and the county manager will talk about that.
I'll start off real quickly and then pass it on to Jonathan, and I think, Brian, yeah, come on up, Brian. As you remember, Ms. Carpenter from the Convention and Visitors Bureau was here a few months ago, and, well, I guess start even before then. As you know, the county gets a portion of the revenues for sports facility development through the revenues that are generated through the Convention and Visitors Bureau. And we've used it on some smaller projects over the years, but we've been trying to hold those revenues for several years in order, because the projects are getting more expensive. So we currently have somewhere between, I think it's 1.6 and 1.7 million in that account right now. And we don't have a project identified, and that's when Ms. Carpenter come to us, and she's trying to, and John in the back there, he's the sports salesperson over there as well, manager, and trying to sell Cabarrus County. We need some more facilities, and we need a more diverse set of facilities. And there, right now, there is a market for synthetic field sports that they can use all year round. And what we're proposing to do is to really help the school system by going out with that money and turfing 2 of their existing fields, and that would allow them to have the synthetic fields to play on, but then also allow the Convention and Visitors Bureau to sell those fields when the schools are not using them. And that will open up Cabarrus County to several new sports. Would be football, would be ultimate frisbee, lacrosse, that typically don't have the space or don't really like to play on the natural turf fields. So we're looking now to present to you, and then also to the schools, the Board of Education, as well, to move forward with this. I know the Visitors Bureau would like to have 2 more fields, not necessarily stadium fields, but 2 more just multi-purpose fields in a location, whether it's on school property somewhere, as at Franklin Park, or is it a whole new location, to add to that. So, as you know, Central Cabarrus has an artificial turf field. The new high school will have an artificial turf field. With these 2 fields, that would be 4 stadiums with artificial fields, and we're looking for 2 additional multi-purpose fields. And that would be an additional amount of money that we would have to raise. The Convention and Visitors Bureau is committed to make, they're discussing now, and hopefully would be to commit those additional revenues for far into the future, that we would collect and pay those costs over the next several years. So I'll turn it down over to Jonathan and Brian, and they can talk to you about the actual work that's actually been done so far, and how do we get these fields built, and what's the process, because there's a tight timeline if we're going to make this happen within the next year or so.
So that really is the beginning of the discussion, is that we pulled a group together in September with the schools, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, county staff, to begin to look at this, and our goal would be to try and get these 2 stadium facilities done over the winter between sports seasons, which again is a very tight time constraint. So Rodney's going to talk to you a little bit about procurement methods that may be necessary or that we can use in order to do that. But we've already had ongoing discussions. Of course, West Cabarrus High School, that field has been installed, and if you have questions about that, Brian can answer those. And there's a lot more to installing one of these fields than just rolling out carpet and putting in a substrate. There's drainage issues, there's concrete curbing issues. We've had some discussions about, can you also upgrade track facilities while you're doing this? There's a number of things involved with that. So it is a difficult both engineering and then procurement process to get all that done at the same time. So phase 1, as Mike said, would be to look at 2 high school stadium facilities, Cox Mill and Robinson, and getting both those done. And then phase 2 would be looking at 2 additional fields that are outside the stadium itself and could be used for these same tournaments. And John is here, may want to speak to booking events, but one of the reasons we have such a tight time frame is they are looking at the possibility of booking some events for next summer. So that would be why we're trying to do this so quickly. Again, We are working now moving to a smaller working group to kind of keep this moving forward. There's already been some discussions with the particular installer or I guess it's installer, not the manufacturer, to see about putting in similar fields, because there is a benefit to the schools to do similar fields because they're going to ultimately be maintaining those. We're also going to be in discussions with the schools about a use agreement, just like we have in use of all the athletic facilities at the schools we already have in place, but this would be a separate use agreement because we're bringing in some outside groups and tournaments and that sort of thing. So project-wise, if you have questions or specifics about the synthetic turf fields or what these facilities look like, then Brian is here to answer those, and then Rodney can go over some of what we're talking about with procurement to help us move forward with this.
So just real quick on the procurement front, as you can imagine, given the time frame, a traditional procurement approach would be problematic. Trying to get a formal sealed bid process completed within a short 4 to 6 week window is very difficult. So what we looked at is some alternatives, and the big one that is we can apply in this situation is a group purchasing program. So these are national programs that are used by local governments. They competitively bid and award their contracts, and so they still go through that same process that we would have gone through. And in this case, they went through that process in June of 2018, so it's a relatively recent bid. And so that's the proposal that we're putting forward, is that we would move forward with that agreement, which allows us to use a local contractor to do the work that the school system has experience with.
I guess to add to this whole conversation is, and I'm sure you may have already gotten them, but we're getting questions too, and I know the schools are too, is why these schools? Why are we looking at these stadiums? Well, again, first of all, there is no school money that's going towards these projects to start with, to construct these fields. And why these schools? Again, it's Cox Mill High School and it's Robinson High School, and then the new high school's already being built. Those are the closest high schools to the hotels, and that's where these athletes that are coming in from all over would want to stay, and their families, their grandma and grandpa and mother and dad that are coming with them. They want to stay close. They want to cut those travel distances as much as possible. So those are the reasons. And again, as Jonathan said, the why we're trying to, or being asked to expedite the process, is because John needs to be able to sell these, but he needs 5 to 6, 8 months out to get events for next year. So he's got to start selling it, but he needs to know that he's got fields that are going to be here before he can start selling Cabarrus County. So there's two parts of the question, or two parts of the project. One is to get these 2 fields with existing money underway to meet those deadlines, and then the other 2 would be what the CVB is asking and willing to commit to, is that if the county would assume the debt and then sign a contract, that the CVB money would continue throughout that process to continue to pay the county back. So there's two separate ones there. There's 2 separate scenarios there. One, the money is existing right now, $1.6 million. So just about all of that would, hopefully that would cover the 2 fields, but then to build the additional 2 fields, they're asking for the county to take that on and then pay with the contract or formal agreement in place that their revenues would come back in to help pay the county back.
And are they talking about doing all 4 at one time, or?
They would like to do, but I don't think logistically we can do 4 fields at one time. So the stadiums would come first, and then we would come back after we selected a location, whether it's already on an existing school site, or it's Franklin's Park, or if it's somewhere else in close proximity that we can put the 2 fields in.
Yes, our concentration will be on those 2 stadium fields to do first, because that is the money we have in place. And again, I know we're repeating a lot of things, but this is tourism money, so that has to be able to, once the end result of this is to bring in events that generate tourism. An event, generate those room nights, and that's important. So that's why we're talking about both the synthetic turf fields, but the possibility, if there are track events out there and we can afford to upgrade some of those those track facilities, and that may be something we'll bring back to you as a proposal to do with this. But again, with speed and the time frame we have, there's engineering, there is installation of these fields, and there's a manufacture of the synthetic turf itself. And these procurement groups that Rodney was talking about would allow us to enter a contract to do all those together, to do that engineering.
So you'd still get the discount or whatever, there's some multiples, even though
Yeah,
it'd be
we
spread
would.
out.
So we'd be using the same synthetic turf and have the same installer potentially with some of these procurement groups, but it's already been pre-bid, which helps us. So we will be bringing you back, if you're still comfortable moving forward with this, we'll be bringing back different approvals that are necessary from you at different commissioners' meetings in pretty rapid succession. And that goes all the way to those use agreements that we'll need to refine to make sure that we have all that buttoned down.
Serve on that board as well, and I know there's certainly a need for that. So I am okay as long as you have a method of where that money's coming from in the meantime while we're getting it back, which I assume you do.
Well, once you give us the authority to move or the direction to move forward, we'll start looking at those different options. That's correct.
I personally am good with it.
I think we actually began similar discussions in 2012 or 2013. So we've taken a while getting there.
But when those two are done, there'll be 7 total fields in the county, counting A.L. Brown, is that correct?
There will be 5.
Central?
5.
Well, 5, but then when you do the 2 more,
The
won't
two
there be
others
7?
would be 7.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so in one option, they would like to have them on non-stadium, but they could be 2 more high schools potentially. But they're trying to get 4 fields in one location. So that would be actually 5, because the new high school is close by as well. So.
One of the things that concerns me about turf fields, I mean, I know that it's going to bring in people and bring in tournaments and all of that, and they're surely not going to last like some of our fields. Central Field, prior to getting the turf, was 20, 25, maybe even 30 years old. And I'm supposing the life of the turf is, Brian, you might or Jonathan, somebody could say the life of the turf is what, 10, maybe 12 years?
Yeah, they said if it's installed correctly and maintained annually on the maintenance agreement, you should get about 15 years out of the turf fields.
Okay. Now, over a period of time, that's obviously a substantial investment, 7 turf fields. When it's all done, you're looking at, what, $7.5, $8 million? And then when it comes time to start replacing those fields, I don't know that it's going to cost as much, but by then it may. If we're paying $1 million to do one now, and in 7 or 8 years we have to start doing them again, then that's going to be another $1 million that's going to have to be allocated for that.
I think
And
we
there are
can-
some cost savings as well with the turf. I guess, Brian, you could speak to what you've experienced, I guess, at some of the schools, but the irrigation system is not necessarily needed other than to cool the field. You'll still need one to cool the field down, but, and the mowing of the grass and some of the other stuff, but Brian, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, and I don't know much from the facility side and the long-term maintenance that we have on our natural grass surfaces. But the advantages that you have of when it does rain, you can turn around within the hour and start playing on it. Whereas on a natural surface, you may have to wait another week, just depending on how much rain you've had. Again, there is a replacement cost that you would have to factor in from a capital improvement standpoint long-term. But the replacement cost is considerably less than completely building a new field altogether. And you have to look at it that way too. And we've also addressed with the company we're speaking with about a maintenance plan, since we'll have so many fields in the area, letting them, contracted with them to perform a preventative maintenance plan with us on all these fields, so.
I think that gets to part of what I was saying, is they're much more complicated than just looking at the synthetic turf. There is a concrete curbing around this, as basically the tack strip. That's my non-professional way of looking at it. There's quite a bit of subsurface work. It's crowned differently. There's base work that has to be done. There's stone. There's a substrate under this. So you're not replacing all of that when you do reach the end of its life. For the most part, you're replacing the actual synthetic turf that lays on top. It is the the carpeting that goes on top of all that. So you don't have to redo all of that each time. And then, as we said, there's an annual maintenance cost that is less because there is a much higher maintenance cost for all the different chemical treatment, watering, and everything you have to do, mowing, everything you have to do with a natural surface field.
John, you want to come up and, you give the CVB's perspective on what the benefit of these stadiums are going to be?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that generate some excitement for me here, which is obviously the opportunity to bring these turf fields to life with sporting rights holders that are out there. The 4 fields in one area is really to get the larger groups to come in, and we need that because when you go to a sports rights holder with 4 fields and you say one's here, one's here, and one's here, that's not as appealing because there's other destinations that are out there that have them all in one area. So that being said, it limits, if we don't have the 4 together, it inhibits me to get those kind of groups in here. Not to say that we won't, but it's just a tougher sell. Now, with regards to the timing of this, we have Diamond Sports rebooking with us with the anticipation that these 2 fields would be completed at that time. What comes with that is the opportunity to generate other groups that they do. And I will tell you, Myrtle Beach is getting the majority of that business, and we can bring that back in. Now, encompassed with all of that is the schools benefit as well. So we see this as a two-way street, one to bring a bit of an economic impact to the area, but also to give back to the schools.
Thanks.
Well, you know, I have no problem with what we're wanting to do because it's a lot cheaper than building the sports complex, which is something I think you was probably referring to.
Right.
And I've seen a lot of those, you know, and I know North Myrtle Beach has a huge one. And I don't know if it's turf or if it's regular grass or what, but you're looking at excess of $20–25 million to do something like that. But then again, you could bring in huge tournaments and, you know, it more than likely would, you know, pay for itself over a period of time. But we've got a pretty sure thing with what you're wanting to do because we got the CVB money that's going to keep coming anyway.
Right.
And so you know that's going to, and that's what, is that what you was referring to, Mike, when you said they'll pay us back? Is that they'll just be making the same contribution they are now, but it'll be designated for those fields first? Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay, well, that's sort of what I was thinking, but, yeah, I think that it, I have no issues with it. My only real concern was when it comes time to start redoing these, and like you said, Jonathan, I know it's a complicated process, but the good thing is in a real simple way, I guess it would be like rolling up the old and putting down the new, so surely it won't be as expensive to do that. And I like to always think ahead because that day will come, and there'll be some other commissioners sitting here, and they're going to be saying, what did we do, or that was a good thing they done back then. And I hope it would be the latter. So, but I'm in full support of it. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? So do you have what you need from us to proceed ahead?
Yes. If it's a consensus that you're in support of the project, then we will continue on as we are.
I see no one shaking their head no. So,
We will
thank
keep you
you.
updated as we move along.
All right.